Welcome everyone to my first editing session in this kind of format. I thought that I would show you kind of what I do when I edit photos. Well, first thing first, I import them into Lightroom as soon as I get home most of the time. In Lightroom is really where the editing starts. So I usually go through the pictures in library mode because I found it to be a lot faster to look at them that way. As you can see right now, I have a few pictures that I've done things to in order to test out things. So the thing that I usually do is I found a picture that I want to experiment with, say like this one. Then I go to the develop module. It's really fast, isn't it? Anyway, when I'm in the develop module on a picture like this, I really just want to test the boundaries of the picture. So I'm going to reduce the highlight to see how much we have left, detail we have left, which you can see that it's really quite a lot that's lost in the sky on a picture like this, which is usually what one can expect. That's why you have a exposure like this where it's a lot darker and you can get out the details from the highlights that you really want, because it's all lost here. If we go into the shadows, you can see that it's quite a lot of detail there. What I do also is I usually zoom in just so I can see the noise levels. As you can see, it's not that high. This picture isn't sharp, of course, it's just one of the test pictures that I took at the start. This is the picture that I tried to edit beforehand. So this episode is kind of cheated because I made like a quick edit beforehand. But I usually do that. I do like a quick edit in order to get a concept of what I actually want to do with a picture. In this case, however, I don't think I'm gonna make it into a huge blending process because I don't really like the end result. I think it's a bit too dull. The sky never really got to be that good. See, around here is where the sky kind of peaked. This is like the most color that actually came out of the sky, and it's not that much. You can see after that I put on the long ND filter, and before this it's not really too much happening. So it's either this one, which might be, it has a bit of detail, or this one does. Yeah, this also has a bit of detail. So this is actually a kind of a good balance, I would think. It's a little bit of noise, not too bad. Nothing that anyone would notice really, in the size that this would be portrayed in any kind of way. So I could actually work here with a single exposure, and that would work kind of good. So let's work with this exposure now and see what we can bring out. Let's reset this one. First and foremost, the highlights, I really want them to be a bit further down here. Something like, 100%. I don't really like to go that far, but I think around 90 here. I guess gonna cut it for this one. The shadows can also be have to push up quite long. Well, the reason for having to push it like 90 minus on the highlights and the 90 plus on shadows, even though I don't really want to in most cases, is that the dynamic range is just so big in this picture. Anyway, We've done that. But that turns the picture really flat. So we can see here we have nothing touching the highlights or the right part. So you can bring it up just a tiny bit. You can see this part is kind of outblown to begin with. So we can make sure that it really is white in these parts that are kind of outblown to begin with, or else if it starts to go more towards a grayish color, it just looks weird. So push those overexposed parts, push them to a white point so that they really turn white. Anyway, so next we should do the blacks. The blacks can be decreased, well, not too much to begin with. So let's start it, actually do it plus a bit, so just have a little bit of completely dark areas. What we can do next is lens correction, so I don't forget to do that. Brings out quite a lot, takes away a lot of the vignetting in the corners. Let's do the white balance. Now I can see that it's a bit bluish, perhaps, so do it a little bit warmer, not too much, like this perhaps. So we still have a bit of the blue left in the water at least, and still some in the sky. Maybe go a bit more to the magenta, too far. It's really like these tiny parts really changes the pictures more towards the way that you really want them to be. Don't push things too far, because it's easy to push everything way ahead, way too far. So, and I think that the colors are kind of muted, so I'm gonna bring out the vibrance just tiny little bit here. Something like this. It's always good to check before, after. Maybe even bring out a little bit of this saturation, like this. Yeah, we have some more color there now. Not too much, but a little bit. I could actually even bring out the contrast just a tiny little bit there. Something like that, yes. And now bring back, how is the highlights looking? Bit too strong perhaps? Bring them back just a tiny little bit. Like that, yes. And also bring down the shadows a little more. Yes, I think we're going somewhere now. Depending on what I'm going to do with the picture next, this is like a basic edit of it. So now I could take it into Photoshop, do something else with it, but I'm not really sure if I want to do that. I might actually do it in order to get this water, because I really wanted the water to be smooth. Let me see. White balance is not really identical. We have plus 17 there. What happens if we just plus 5? Is it too green? You know, color shaking is really color shaking a picture I was taking without a filter and one with a filter is really where you start to notice the issue of having a color cost on your filters. And you really need to try to check it, because if we take like the same, this is the same color balance then, and you can see that. Alright. This one is actually a bit too cold, so let's take like 6,500 perhaps, and plus, is plus 10 too much? Plus 10 looks kind of good. And then we need to make the exposure kind of right. Just a tiny bit. The highlight slider was good where it was. Bring up the shadows just a tiny bit. The whites and the blacks could be... Let's increase the contrast just slightly. There we go. Yes, 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 I think that's the wrong one. It's this one, yes. Which one is this? It's this one, yes. So we might actually bring up the white balance all the way to 7,000 again. Yeah, I think that's gonna look kind of good. Also make sure that lens correction is set on both. Now that I'm taking it into Photoshop, I also want to make sure that the sharpening is set at 0. Because then I can add the sharpening in Photoshop, which actually does a little bit of better work. I'm not gonna add any dehaze or clarity to this picture because I'm taking it into Photoshop, where I can use other techniques, or I could add these as well later. So let's select both of them, right click on it, edit in, open as layers in Photoshop. That's the way I do it. So the images are aligned now. Toggling between the two, we can see that they look to be quite close. So what I really want to do now is to bring this foreground onto this picture. So I'm going to change position on the two, and I'm not going to do this too advanced. I'm just going to put on a layer mask. I did this wrong. I'm actually going to put on a black layer mask. Then choose a brush, increase the size a little bit, and then just start to paint it in. Just go really slow. I'm gonna zoom it in a bit to 100%. First do the rougher parts here. And then go finer afterwards. So a few of the flowers gonna have to give way for the smoother border. So I'm mostly done now. I'm just doing the finer parts here around the edge. But as you can see, even though I'm spilling over quite a bit as I've painted here, you can see that it's not too bad because I've matched the exposure kind of good before going into Photoshop. So even though I'm not being super thorough in this, the edge still looks kind of good, which is, well, it just makes it so much easier doing something kind of quick like this. And I'm doing this completely with my mouse. I'm not using a pen at the moment, even though I have one. I use it mostly on, well, a bit more. Let's get a bit too far here. Sorry. Well, I use the pen mostly on a bit more, well, serious work, I guess you could say. So, like this. I think we have everything. Yeah. You can see the difference. I think that having the water, well, like it is now, it's a bit too much happening in the water, and it distracts from kind of the peace and the calm of mind that I want to bring out in my pictures. So therefore we slap on that ND filter and make our lives more miserable. So what I do now is I select both of them, put them in a folder, rename it blend. Then I press Shift, Control, Alt and E, and it makes a new layer. I'm gonna name this one Heal, because I need to heal. What I'm gonna do first though is to actually crop it a bit. And I don't want 16:9, I want the original crop, and I just want to bring it in slightly. Like that. I think that's good enough. Just press enter. You can see that delete crop pixel is not selected, so I still have the background pixels if I want them. Yeah, that looks good. Then I'm gonna take the what's the name of this one? Spot healing brush tool. Just gonna zoom in, and I'm gonna do these spots, dust spots that I have. I have a few on my screen as well. You can't really see them, but I have one here, and I really have to be careful as I don't try to clean out what isn't actually in the image. Here we can see we have one here. So I'm just gonna do this really quick, and I'll update you as soon as I've done that, because this is bit tedious as well. Okay, so we're done with that. You can see just here in the sky that we removed some of the dust spots. Yeah. What I usually do now is actually I pop into filters and go to Nick Collection and color effects. You can see I have a few favorites here. I don't even use all of them most of the time. Pro contrast is really the one filter that is I guess the one reason that I really use Color Effect Pro. The other ones are just more bonuses. This filter is really nice. So first and foremost, let's see if we have what the color cost is doing. I don't really like the correction it does here. I think it turns a bit too green for what I would like, so I'm not going to do any color cost correction in this one. Correct contrast should be bringing out a bit more contrast into the picture. Maybe not too much. Protect the shadows a bit perhaps here. Not too much, like this. And we can bring it. Yeah, something like this should be good. Also some dynamic contrast, which really is what makes the picture pop a bit more. See, something like this. We can compare it before after. It just brings a bit more pop to the image. Gonna add another one here. Let's see. I'm thinking I'm gonna do a polarization. Let's see how that kind of looks right now. Really like to turn up the strength before I rotate, so you can see the rotation around here might be doing something good to the image. Bit much perhaps. Yeah, that looks to bring out a bit more contrast here around the upper clouds, which is good. Oh yeah. See how the color contrast, what would that give? I like to cancel everything out before I start doing anything. Yeah, I might do. So I'm just going back and forth until I get to a point where I actually like it. As you can see, if I bring it up too much, it starts to distort the highlights quite a lot. Still, I kind of like it, I think. Perhaps something like this and protect the highlights a bit. Yeah, that looks kind of cool. I'm thinking that I should perhaps do a skylight filter to just add a bit more warmth into it. Something like this perhaps. Yeah, that looks kind of good. And that's 8, I think. Let's look at the perceptual. No, nothing of that. Warmth. We need more warmth. A little bit. Yeah, let's do that. This is good. So, okay, I'm just gonna save it as a new layer. As you can see, it's quite a huge difference. Usually it might be that I bring it out a bit too far and then I just pull down the opacity just slightly. So I'm gonna bring it down like 10% here. Yeah, that's good. Now I'm gonna make a new layer. Go to filter, other, and high pass, and we're gonna sharpen this image a bit. What I do now, or what I usually use if I bring down the sharpening in Photoshop beforehand, is that I use a radius of 2. Consider that I have a 24 megapixel picture here. So if you have a higher, you would go higher on the radius. If you have a lower, you would go lower. So I use 2 most of the time. Bring up the opacity again. And then we change it to... I either use overlay or hard light. So I go in. I check here, we have hard light. It looks not too good in this one. Yeah, that looks better. Hard light gets a bit too harsh. Good. Now we're just gonna use full opacity on overlay this time. What I want to do now is add a mask, use the brush and paint in black around actually all the upper part here. I don't want to sharpen everything up here as much as I would like the bottom part here. So like this. And then I'm just gonna change to white, change the flow to something like 50, and I'm just gonna maybe, yeah, well, let's do 50. Just paint in a little bit here on the horizon line like this. So we have a bit of sharpening back here as well. Oh, that's a bit much here in the trees. Let's go to black again and just kind of remove it there. A bit too much. Let's go for 30 here and just paint it in a little bit. And then go down to like 20 and just pop a little bit in the trees here. Yes. That looks kind of good, I think. What I'm gonna do now is make a new layer. I'm gonna alt click the layer button. So I get up this new layer. You name it D and B for dodge and burn. Mode overlay. I'm gonna fill it with a neutral color. Now we have a dodge and burn layer, and use a flow of 10. White makes it brighter, dark makes it, or white makes it brighter, black makes it darker. So I'm gonna I'm not gonna do it too advanced here. I'm just gonna. 10 is a bit strong with the mouse, you know. 0.5 perhaps. Let's bring out some of the moss here. It really has these like spots, highlight spots upon it to begin with. That's really what is. These highlight spots is really what makes this moss so nice. And here you can see it's perhaps like 0.3 down here, and just painting a bit more interest into this because it's reflecting a bit from here, you know, and it looks kind of nice. So something like this perhaps. Bring a bit more in out here as well. You see, when you get too close to the border, it starts to get annoying. Then you can bring out a mask and just paint a bit of black to get it out from the water parts. It's much easier to just paint out it with a mask rather than trying to, well, figure it out with the water itself. Paint on a layer again and use a bit of white and use 0.5. Just bring it a bit more interest into this. And I think I went a bit too far here as well. Use around 50% there and just paint it out from the water. How does it look now? See, it really brought out a bit more interest. I think I've gone a bit too far here. So perhaps I could brighten up this just slightly. Use 0.3 and just slightly push up the whole inner part there. That looks kind of good. Just slightly darker and slightly brighter. Slightly darker. Something like this. Yeah, that looks good. So that's basically it for the editing part, I think. We can look at how alt-clicking the eye on one layer will show that layer only. So we can click and see before, after. See how bad is it? No, it's not too bad. We can see that it's really starting to blow out, and that's the negative part in using one image as I did this time. Okay, so now I'm just gonna save it, and I go to save as, and I go to edited in pictures, and I go to PSD. Then I save it as a, where are you? There, Photoshop PSD. And I use the same file name as I had before. I think that's the easiest way to find it again well, it's the easiest way to find the original picture again. So I'm just gonna save that, and that's gonna take a bit of time. So oh yeah, the PSD is saved there, and I'm gonna save it again. As I said, go into the TIFF folder, change it to, oh wait, before I do that I need to flatten the image. So flatten image, save as, TIFF, and the same file name again, and then I'll just save it. And it's saved. Then I'm just gonna close Photoshop, and we should get the images back into Lightroom here. Let's see. It comes into another folder that I have here, Photoshop edited PSD TIFF. So it should be in the TIFF folder. There we have it. Go into the develop module again. The loading of images is really slow right now because I'm writing the recording to the same disk where I have the photos. It's not ideal, but it's gonna have to work for a while, at least until I can manage to upgrade that. So let's see here how we are a few points away on the blacks and the whites, so let's just go to complete whites. How much? Like this or like this? Let's go 32 then. On the blacks. Well, like this, I guess, should cut it. And then we can see before. After, it just brings a bit more clarity to the sky there. Also, I'm just gonna check the auto levels, see if no, it didn't. Yeah, Lightroom is satisfied. I'm satisfied with that as well. And well, I would say that the image is done now. Now it's just to export it to whatever location I'm gonna use it. So I hope you enjoyed watching this kind of, well, thing, and give me any feedback if you would like. I really like to get any kind of feedback so that I know how that I could improve this in the future. And remember, this the idea of these kind of editing videos is not to educate but rather to inspire, so keep that in mind. And well, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.